welcome back to the channel, and today we are talking about the French clothing brand Vetements. Now, Vetements is a French clothing brand that was started in 2014, and it was started by two brothers, Demna Gvasalia and Guram Gvasalia. People know who Demna Gvasalia is, but if you don't, he's the current creative director of Balenciaga. So the popular things you've seen from Balenciaga, he's responsible for those things like the Triple S and other trends that Balenciaga has started. Another thing to note about Demna Gvasalia is he used to work for Margiela as a designer. He's also worked at Louis Vuitton as a designer, and he studied at the Royal Academy of Arts in Antwerp. So that kind of makes sense why he's worked for Margiela. There's kind of that Belgian connection there. Now, Vetements, it kind of rose to fame and it got really big because of how it was, and it's kind of this brand that basically made fun of fashion and went against the norms of fashion. And it kind of did it in like a jokey way and a funny way, and this kind of like tongue-in-cheek way. So it was very funny. A lot of fashion critics liked it for how different it was and how, you know, edgy it was, making fun of fashion and stuff like that. I think at the time when it started, it was definitely fresh, it was new, it was funny. But I think in recent times, it's kind of gotten worse. And it's almost gotten to the point where the clothes are just terrible, and it's not the Vetements that we knew from the start is no longer the same Vetements, and I'll get into why I think that is later on in the video, so continue watching till the end. So now we're gonna kind of go through the timeline of Vetements collections from fall winter 2014 all the way up until I think the last collection, which was fall winter 2019, if I remember correctly. Okay, so the first collection we're going to talk about is the Vetements fall winter 2014 collection. Now in this collection, it was kind of a nod, and we could already see what the up and coming Vetements aesthetic was going to be. This collection, there wasn't too much to it, but it did look chic, it did look classy at the same time. There were slightly a few edgy details from the shapes that were really boxy to kind of like the denim, and the bottoms of the denim were uneven and they were unfinished, and that was kind of this whole going against how fashion, everything has to be perfect and everything has to be right, the right proportions, tailored a certain way, like the Savile Row way. And this was kind of a start to what would be the Vetements aesthetic and what Vetements is known for. So like I said, this collection was classy and chic, but at the same time, the oversized aesthetic allowed for a unique look. And you guys know I lean more towards like a minimalistic aesthetic personally. And I feel like less is more a lot of the time. So I really like this collection. I know some people will say this collection is basic, but to me, I'll still say less is more. When this collection, it's just how the details are. Like, it's really difficult to design and to create patterns for designs of shapes like that. And the sleeves were slightly elongated and the silhouette was oversized. And we kind of associate that with Vetements because that is the Vetements staple. So when I say the word Vetements staple, just for the sake of the future collections, what I mean when I say a Vetements staple is kind of like the Vetements aesthetic. So that's what they've done in most of their collections. So in Vetements collections, what you can expect is oversized silhouettes. The tailoring, the shape will be really boxy most of the time in Vetements collections. You'll notice that they always have some sort of thigh-high boots in like 95% of their collections. So thigh-high boots is a staple in a Vetements collection. It's rare you have a Vetements collection without a thigh-high boot, a good thigh-high boot. Also, like I said, elongated sleeves, oversized silhouettes, boxy fitting, tailoring, yeah, and so on. Now we're talking about the fall winter 2015 collection, and this was actually the first Vetements runway show. So the fall winter 2014 collection was just kind of like a presentation, as you guys saw from that video. But the spring summer 15 collection was the first runway show. So in my opinion, this collection was a direct upgrade from the last collection. There were more colors, more silhouettes, and more looks. And in some specific looks, there's women wearing gray sweats, which now you'd kind of see as normal. But back then, wearing sweatpants and sweatshirts was literally seen as lazy and unfashionable. And it was just seen like you're someone who's not fashionable and you don't know how to put outfits together. So it was quite funny when Vetements was putting sweatshirts and sweatpants on the runway side by side with brands like, you know, the other brands that were at Paris Fashion Week, like Yohji Yamamoto or Comme des Garçons. So yeah, it was very ironic to see these type of things on the runway, and the sweatpants were also too long, which was another way of making fun of the fashion industry, that everything has to be perfect. And he was just saying that, you know, you can wear elongated and oversized trousers as well, which was quite a good look, and it was quite interesting and funny. There were pieces that had one sleeve, and there were also pieces that sat really weirdly on the shoulders. I love the look of the thigh-high boots. Like I said, that's one of the Vetements staples. I really liked the silhouettes of the trench coats in this collection. But I'm sure you guys get the point. This collection was really good. I think, to me personally, what makes Vetements collection so good, in my opinion, or let me not say now, but back then, was the fact that Demna Gvasalia was making fun of fashion. So he was making a lot of clothes that were kind of ironic. So he was making things that had boxy shoulders, which doesn't complement the body properly, or he was making elongated sleeves, oversized silhouettes, things that were a bit too long, the shapes were weird, shirts with like one sleeve cut off and then one sleeve there. And at the same time, despite all these like crazy, out of the ordinary and brash looks and silhouettes, for some reason, when you look at the pieces, they still fit well, they look nice on the body, and they look good, they look chic, they look classy, even though they have these kind of like weird nods to them. And I feel like it takes a certain level of skill to be able to do that, achieve those two things at the same time. And that's what, for me, in the past, I thought Vetements was really good for, and was really, really something that I looked at and I was like, this is really well designed clothing, because they could achieve those two things at the brand. Whereas I feel now it's kind of just gone downhill, but I'll get to that, So the next collection we're talking about is the Vetements Fall Winter 2015 collection. And this collection was a bit more street. It looked a bit more streetwear-esque compared to the past couple of collections we just looked at. But what you can see is that Vetements gradually started moving away from their kind of like edgy chic aesthetic, and this was more of a brash street aesthetic. And either way, I don't really mind, because the clothes were still well designed, and I personally love both of them. And of course, we saw the usual Vetements staples in this collection, and I don't really need to tell you what the staples are by this point. You know, oversized silhouettes, elongated trousers, elongated jackets, you know, weirdly shaped pieces, boxy fitting and boxy tailoring. You get the point, We know what Vetements staples are by this point. And also in this collection, you start to see the influence of Demna Gvasalia working for Margiela, with a lot of the pieces where he did some deconstruction and reconstruction. And we all know that's Margiela's thing. That's what Maison Margiela is particularly known for. So I'm sure Demna Gvasalia learnt those skills working for Margiela. Another funny detail about this collection was that the models were actually holding pouches that contain Oyster cards. And I thought that was really funny. If you're not from London and you have no idea what Oyster cards are, those are the cards we use to travel around London. Kind of similar to a Metro card if you're from New York. I also really liked how over the top some of the shearling jackets were in this collection. And like I've said before, Vetements collections at the time looked so brash and over the top, but when you sat down and looked at the individual pieces, they were strangely and almost surprisingly chic. Now, before I continue talking about the later on collections, let me just get more into depth as to why I think Vetements, at the present day, people don't really care about it. People don't really like it anymore. And I think one of the main reasons is back to my original point, where the designing, the construction was so complex that Demna Gvasalia, even though he was having all these crazy silhouette shapes and cuts, he's so skilled that he found a way to make something funny out of fashion, but still make it chic and make it look good on the body and still fit well and still have really good proportions, which to me is exceptionally hard to achieve. And that was where I thought Vetements was the it brand. That's why I thought Vetements, wow, this is some really good stuff. And unfortunately, if you look at more recent collections that we will get into by the end of this video, it's just stale. It's almost like he's run out of ideas. And the only excuse I can give him for why this could possibly be is the fact that he's the creative director for Balenciaga. And I'm just guessing that all his good ideas go into Balenciaga. So by the time it's time to make a Vetements collection, his ideas have been kind of used. So he doesn't really have any ideas left, and then Vetements suffers. And I mean, we've seen it with many designers of today. We've seen it with Raf Simons when he was at Calvin Klein. I think he was focusing too much on Calvin Klein. So we got really good collections at Calvin Klein, but Raf Simons' own main line kind of suffered. It's the same thing with, you know, other designers. When Alexander McQueen was designing for Givenchy, you could kind of see his brand suffering a little bit. So it happens. I'm sure if Craig Green decided to become the creative director of a major company, his mainline brand, his namesake brand, would suffer. Someone as well, we've seen it from J.W. Anderson when he started getting involved at Loewe. I feel like now his Loewe collections are nice, but the J.W. Anderson collections are kind of suffering a bit. So I get it. When you have to divide your time between two big fashion houses, I can see why the execution of your ideas might not be as good, because you don't have as much time, because now you have to push way more collections, like almost double the amount of collections, or sometimes even more. So you're rushing collections, because within the same time where you would have designed, let's say 4 collections a year, now you're designing 8, 9, 10. So that's the only excuse I have for him, to be honest. So next we're talking about the Spring Summer 16 collection. And this was a really big collection because there's a lot of things in this collection that people remember. And one of the first things is, this was the collection where we saw Gosha Rubchinskiy walk wearing the DHL t-shirt. And this was when it was a big trend to ironically wear the uniform of delivery companies as something that's fashionable. So people are wearing Deliveroo uniform as fashion, DHL stuff as fashion. People are making their own stuff as well. So it was kind of cool. It was cool to see this trend kind of come in. This was also the start of the collaboration between Vetements and Champion. And in this collection, you saw a lot of pieces in collaboration with Champion. And I think this collection had quite a few pieces that people really remember Vetements for. Another one is the hoodie that said coming soon, the coming soon hoodie that had coming soon written in red on the side, on the sleeve of the hoodie. And this was also kind of when Vetements embroidered stuff on the hood, and then loads of streetwear brands, every streetwear brand under the sun. I don't know why no one thought of it before Demna did it, but every streetwear brand under the sun started putting embroidery on the hood, because no one used to do that before. So yeah, we can say this is one of the more iconic Vetements collections. That's because a lot of the pieces, a lot of people remember it till this day. So looking at the collection itself, as I always say, we saw the Vetements staples. I'm not going to tell you what those are. You know, the boxy fitting garment, the oversized silhouettes, the deconstruction and reconstruction, the elongated sleeves, the hoodies with massive hoods, you know, the thigh-high leather boots and so on, denim with unfinished ends. That's the Vetements aesthetic. That's the Vetements look. So when I say we saw the Vetements staples, that's what you guys should expect. But once again, I'll say it again and I'll keep saying it. Demna Gvasalia is such a skilled designer that even with these out of the ordinary shapes and cuts, for some reason it still fits well on the body in this collection, and it ironically looks classy and chic. And once again, it's just a nod to how skilled he is as a designer. I can't really say anything bad about someone who's that skilled. But yeah, once again, the collections were still getting more and more streetwear-ish, streetwear-esque, and less chic from like what we saw in the 2014 collection. Next, we're talking about the Vetements Fall-Winter 2016 collection. Now, in this collection, there are some more staples that we remember Vetements for. Now the first one is there was a hoodie that said, "May the bridges I burn light the way," and that was huge. That was on everywhere on my Instagram feed. Everyone was buying that hoodie. That was probably one of the most popular Vetements hoodies of all time. Just simple Vetements hoodie, elongated sleeves, oversized silhouette, oversized hood. A funny story actually is I went to LA 2 years ago and I went to a museum. I can't remember what the name of the museum is. I really can't. I know it was on Hollywood though. It was near the Hollywood Boulevard where you have all those names of celebrities on the floor. That's where the museum was. And in the museum, I saw on a certain place in the museum that same quote somewhere. And I remember thinking at the time, did Demna get this from this museum? Did he like go to this museum and read this quote and then get inspired and throw it on a hoodie and then it sold out? But yeah, I guess we'll never know. So this collection also, like I said, it has many other staples. It's known for, you know, the very boxy white shirt that said "you effing asshole." This is also where the collection that featured all the sexual fantasy stuff, and those sold really well as well. I know a lot of people had all the sexual fantasies hats or the sexual fantasies sweatshirts and hoodies and stuff like that. So that was another staple in this collection. Something else that really took off in this collection were the pieces that had this kind of like gothic print, and it had Vetements written in the gothic print in red, and then it had some other print. There were different ones, but I'll show you guys a picture of one now. So yeah, there are many different staples in this collection, but anyway, now we're just going to talk about the collection as a whole. So looking at this collection, something I found really interesting was how boxy the clothes were. Now I know I've told you that the Vetements staple and the Vetements look is a very boxy silhouette and aesthetic. However, in this collection, they were even more boxy than usual, which is quite weird because Vetements is already boxy to start with. So yeah, that was quite an interesting thing to see. Also, some pieces were so weirdly shaped, they almost made the models look like they had hunchbacks or they had no necks. It was so weird. But it was quite interesting, once again, making fun of fashion. Like I said, Vetements is kind of like this ironic brand. That's the aesthetic where they go against the grain in what is considered traditional tailoring or, you know, traditional draping, and they just turn it upon itself, essentially. But, you know, what do we know? You know, we saw the usual Vetements staples in this collection as well, from the boots to the shapes to the silhouettes to the cuts. So once again, this collection was just a continuation of the Vetements we had, by this point, come to expect. So this collection, what I can say about it is, it was good, it was all right. There were some really good pieces, really interesting pieces, a lot of pieces that did resonate with a lot of people. Like I said, the hoodie that said, "May the bridges I burn light the way," or, you know, the t-shirt that turned a lot of heads that said "you effing asshole," or even the piece that had all the sexual fantasies, or the pieces that had all the sexual fantasy stuff on them. However, it wasn't groundbreaking because at this point we had seen this Vetements aesthetic. We are kind of used to it. We knew what to expect. And because this is kind of similar to the other Vetements collections, once again, it's kind of this ironic way of making fun of fashion, but at the same time, the pieces do look nice, the pieces do look good, they look chic. And yeah, if I had a lot of money, I'll definitely go back and buy a lot of Vetements archives. Now we move on to the Spring Summer 17 collection, and this was another amazing collection that had a lot of staples that we know Vetements for as well. It seems like within this time range was kind of like the best years of Vetements, where a lot of the pieces were resonating with a lot of people. It was in this collection that Vetements started to collab with a lot of brands, a whole like amount of brands, and in this collection we kind of saw bomber jackets in collaboration with Alpha Industries. We saw some pieces in collaboration with Reebok. We saw, you know, we had already seen the collaboration with Champion, and that was kind of like an ongoing collaboration with Vetements. And there are many other brands that Vetements did collab with as well. So you might be wondering what I'm talking about, like what pieces do people remember from this collection? One of them is the pieces that had sécurité written on them, which was kind of like making fun of like, or trying to make security outfit fashionable, and I really liked it. I thought it was quite funny actually, having like leather jackets that security guards would normally wear, and the kind of boots they would wear as a look, and a cap that said sécurité as well. It definitely looks like how French police or security would dress. So I thought that was a really good knock. Some other things that really did resonate in this collection were the champion hoodies that said Antwerpen on them, and there were other pieces that said Antwerpen on them. As we know, Demna Gvasalia went to school in Antwerp, so it makes sense. And why it even makes more sense is because champion at the time was associated with what collegiate athletes or collegiate people or people that went to college in America were wearing. And then he's put Antwerpen on them, which is why he went to college. So it's kind of like a fusion of, you know, college, so to speak. It makes sense, it makes sense. Some other things that really did well in this collection were also, like I said, they collaborated with Reebok, and the windbreakers in collaboration with Reebok sold out immediately. Those did really well commercially, and also the thigh-high boots, which is weird because Vetements, like I said, almost always does some variation of thigh-high boot, at around this time anyway. Yet it took until now for people to decide, oh, you know what, we would want to buy those thigh-high boots. Kind of weird. But yeah, they did really well this collection. So looking at this collection, of course, the Vetements staples were present, and you know, back to a normal level of boxiness. And this collection kind of leaned more towards this ever-growing streetwear aesthetic. And like I said, Demna Gvasalia kind of went from like this kind of like tailoring, edgy look to like more of a streetwear hoodies, sweatshirts, jeans type look, which is fair enough. Like I said, I still like both of them. I don't mind either one of them. Of course, we got our fair share of thigh-high boots in this collection, as usual. But yeah, there wasn't really anything we hadn't seen at this point, kind of similar to the last collection. It was good to see the new collaboration pieces, but nothing groundbreaking, nothing interestingly new or interestingly groundbreaking. So up to this point, you know, all the collections were great, very cohesive, and had staple pieces that did well commercially. It was around this time Demna Gvasalia also made a statement where he said that he was done with hoodies and streetwear. And you know, that statement didn't really make sense because current Vetements is basically that. So Demna, I love you, I have love for your designs, but that statement it just made absolutely no sense. So next we are looking at the fall winter 2017 collection, and then this is where, in my personal opinion, Vetements started to decline aesthetically. This is where I thought the designs were getting worse. This is when I thought it was just getting worse and worse. It looked like the collection started to look like they were getting rushed. And this is also when Balenciaga had the most success, 2017, 18, 19, well, 18, 17, 18. So once again, I'll give Demna Gvasalia the benefit of the doubt that he was focusing so much on Balenciaga that he did not have time for Vetements, which is why Vetements suffered so much that it came to this. It came to this trash. It came to this rubbish. It came to this terrible clothing that some people still think is good, which is terrible. So in this collection, there were a lot of staples. There were the Vetements jeans that had the Vetements print at the top of the jeans. There was also the nuclear puffer. That was something that did really well as well around the time. Another piece that did really well was the hoodie that had kind of like a French flag. And another talking point about this collection was how some of the models are really old. It's quite funny because Demna Gvasalia obviously was the creative director of Balenciaga at the time, and he featured old models in the Balenciaga show and in the Vetements show, so it was quite an interesting thing. Now looking at this collection, it was a turn for the worse. It was just really random and all over the place, and it just seemed like Demna Gvasalia wanted to throw in as many different pieces as possible all into one collection. There was like a fur coat here, a dress there, leather jacket there, you know, some different silhouettes here, trench coat there. It looked too street for my taste, first of all. The silhouettes and shapes weren't as, you know, interesting and edgy as they normally are. They got really plain and they were like really boring. And yeah, this is kind of when the collection started going downhill, in my opinion. And I wasn't really feeling Vetements from this specific point. Let's just say that. However, what I did like was what the models were wearing was so different. It was almost like the models are all individual characters. And because in the fashion show, they were going up and down escalators, it kind of resembled a mall, like how you would walk around and people are going up and down escalators, and they're all dressed differently and look different. So that was the only positive I could possibly take from this collection. Next, we are talking about the Spring Summer 18 collection. And in this collection, there was actually no runway show. This was the time that actually was big because Demna Gvasalia was supposed to show Vetements at Fashion Week, and then he pulled out. And then what he did instead was Vetements moved the headquarters to Zurich in Switzerland. And what they did instead of having a fashion show was Demna Gvasalia took pictures of models in the clothes himself, and he kind of had like some exhibition type event instead of a fashion show, just showing the pictures of models in the clothes. And it's quite interesting because he didn't use actual models. He was just like going to random people and asking them if they want to model for his collection. So it was quite interesting. Like, he just got some random people on the street to model his clothes. Of course, once again, there are a couple of recognizable pieces that came from this collection. There was a DHL jacket. There was this Umbro long sleeve. It was neon, I think it was green, yeah. Something that really took off in this collection were the Vetements Zurich hoodies and Vetements Zurich shirts in every colorway. They sold out. I think it's mainly because that was kind of the only Vetements collection that they plastered Zurich all over it. So I'm sure a couple years from now it will have a lot of value because that was kind of like the collection to show they just moved their headquarters to Zurich. But yeah, once again, man, this collection was just plain, man. It was plain. It's plain. But yeah, getting into the collection in more depth, this was just another dry, stale collection, in my opinion. Another terrible Vetements collection, which is quite sad because up until this point, I really loved Vetements. And the last collection was kind of a disappointment. So I was hoping the next collection would be good. And I remember at the time, I was just like, oh my God, Vetements is going down the drain. So yeah, it just looks so basic compared to what we were used to seeing at the time. And like, when I look at Vetements, I want to see uniquely cut pieces, that stick out, that are edgy. Some of the looks in this collection, they're just comparable to like your everyday Instagram brands. Like, I'm not even joking. I'm not even trying to be controversial or trying to have a hot take. I'm being serious. Like, some of the pieces were so basic. It's like, I've seen that on some Instagram brands. Just nothing intrigued me or interested me in this collection. Nothing gave me, nothing gave me the wow factor. It was less of the original Vetements staples in this collection as well, which was quite disappointing. And yeah, it was just at this point, Vetements to me started declining. And I'm sure it did start declining to most other people as well, because the sales started to go down at this point. And also, in terms of popularity, it wasn't all over Instagram and stuff like that. So next, we are talking about the Fall Winter 2018 collection. Now, this collection was better than the last two, but it still wasn't good. It wasn't fantastic. It was better than the last two, okay. But kind of the buzz for Vetements had already died down, so it just wasn't a good look, man. It wasn't good. Also, in this collection, there weren't that many recognizable pieces. I think that can be attributed to the fact that, by this point, no one really cared about Vetements. And then on top of it, the collections weren't that nice anyway. So I'm not surprised that it didn't really resonate with too many people anyway. But yeah, like I said, for me, this collection was better than the last two, but still wasn't the best Vetements collection I'd ever seen, to be honest. Some of the pieces in this collection I saw and I thought, okay, that's a really complex print. That's amazing tailoring, interesting silhouette. And it was just other times I saw pieces and I thought, what the hell is this crap? Like, what is this rubbish? Like, what is this? So it's kind of like one of those collections where half I liked, half... Actually, no, that's an overstatement. I liked a quarter of it, and then 3/4 I didn't like. So it was a mess. The collection was a mess. There's all these pieces with loads of different clashing colors, and it was all over the place. Now, I know an argument that some of you might have is that's Vetements though. Vetements is supposed to be over the top. It's supposed to be ironic. Now, there's tasteful ironic. That was when Vetements first started. It was tasteful. It was ironic. There were oversized silhouettes, boxy shapes and stuff like that. That's ironic, but it still looked nice. Like the DHL jackets, it was ironic, it was funny, but at the same time, when you wear it, you look stylish, it looks nice. But with the pieces in this collection, they're just stupidly ironic to the point where it just looks stupid. Like the collections, the pieces just look stupid. Like they just didn't look nice. Like there's no excuse you can give for this piece that I'm about to bring up. What is the excuse for these pieces? Like, they just look terrible. So in a nutshell, the collection was better than the last two, but this was still awful as well. It wasn't the best in the world, to be frank with you. And yeah, this is just the time when Vetements just started to be on the decline. And I think this is kind of when Vetements started to, let me not say die, that's dramatic, but no one really cared anymore. And once again, the only excuse I have for this is maybe Demna Gvasalia was just focusing so much on Balenciaga that he just didn't spend any time on Vetements. It was kind of just rushed. So next we're talking about the Spring/Summer 19 collection, and this is a slight improvement again from the last three, but it also wasn't the best Vetements collection I'd ever seen. There are some pieces that were recognizable that people remembered. There was a tattoo sleeve shirt that kind of was a nod and kind of looked similar to the Jean-Paul Gaultier one that he made. There was also kind of like this bullseye t-shirt. I think that's what it was called at the time. It just kind of like had the bullseye logo on it and it was boxy. I don't know. It resonated with a lot of people. I don't know. It did well commercially. Now, this collection, the inspiration for this collection, what Demna Gvasalia said was, he's Georgian, so he was saying it was inspired by being from Georgia and how like the war broke out in Georgia. So that's kind of the aesthetic of this collection, which is why you see the pieces look torn up and like wrecked and messed up. And now, while I think that's a really good idea, I understand that it's true to him. There was the war. That's something very serious. That's not something to like joke about. However, I feel like the way he executed, I feel like that was a really good idea to kind of bring the emotional side, bring the fact you're Georgian, the war, kind of tie it into a collection. But I feel like the execution was horrific. I just felt like the execution was awful. And this is going back again, the collections just aren't fantastic. You've got these like deconstructed pieces that he's reconstructed and they don't quite look right. Yes, I get it's an ironic brand, but it just didn't look ironically nice. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this collection, to be honest. But yeah, to go more in depth, once again, another day, another horrific Vetements collection. Now, you know, it was just an absolute disappointment. It was not the Vetements that, you know, had this street, edgy, sometimes chic aesthetic that I had at this point grown to expect. And once again, he said he was done with streetwear in an interview. But it doesn't make sense, because why am I seeing windbreakers, like windbreakers, these flag windbreakers in this collection, like windbreakers from different countries? That looks to me like sportswear / streetwear. So this statement that Demna Gvasalia was saying, oh, I'm done with streetwear, I'm not really buying it, to be honest. I don't know what type of mad contradictory statement that was, but yeah. The whole collection just looked naff. I don't know. I think in this collection, those countries that, I haven't looked into it by the way, but those countries that had the windbreakers, maybe they had a part to play in the war, something to do with the war, I'm guessing, because that's what the collection was about. So I get it, but the execution, once again, it's one thing to have an idea, it's another thing to execute it really well. I think the idea was 10 out of 10, the execution was 3 out of 10 in this collection. That's kind of my thoughts. Especially the denim, when he did those reconstructed and deconstructed denim that everyone praises, and I'm just looking at it like, really? I can't see it. Maybe there's something that other people are seeing that I'm just not seeing, honestly. This collection just looked really, really rushed. It just looked like he just wanted to finish this collection really quickly and then just go back to his work at Balenciaga. That's honestly what it looked like. Oh, we are finally at the last collection I'm going to discuss today, and that is the Fall/Winter 2019 collection. There weren't really staple recognizable pieces in this collection, so I won't really talk about that. And in this collection is probably one of the worst ones, because not only was the execution bad, the idea in the first place was bad, and the aesthetic of this collection was kind of like it was kind of about, if I remember correctly, kids protesting. It was kind of because it was about like politics and the political sphere at the time, and how kids were protesting a lot in Paris, and the collections, the looks that the models were wearing were supposed to mirror kind of like different characters of people that would go to these protests. But once again, the idea, the execution, both of it was just a bit off, to be honest. Yeah, like I said, the idea was bad, so even if the execution was good, it wouldn't save this collection, to be honest. And yeah, it's just so depressing, man. And the collection was called Antisocial. So I think it was kind of like a play on the fact that we are in this social media era and like everyone's antisocial and stuff like that. And first of all, Rei Kawakubo has already done that. So first of all, it's not really an original design, and Rei Kawakubo's execution on that was impeccable. So if you want to try and, you know, compete with Rei on the same idea, you're gonna have to come with something better than this trash. Sorry, Demna, but it's just the truth. So yeah, once again, like I said, the execution of this collection is a bit naff. The pieces look so rushed, and like he said, it's inspired by the rebellion of the youth. And yeah, this is just one of those situations where the concept just wasn't executed properly, in my opinion, and it just looked totally rushed. And it's sad that Vetements gradually went from this chic, ironic, fun, you know, funny, entertaining brand to just some absolute boring, dry, stale brand. And it's just dead. It's just dead. Like, no one cares about it. No one talks about it because the collections haven't been up to par. The collection has been awful. It just, like, in this collection, the looks that they were wearing, the models were wearing, literally looked like some early 2000s kind of streetwear. This like overly baggy, like soldier boy type look, and I wasn't feeling it, to be honest. So yeah, those are all the Vetements collections. Yeah, it's just sad to see what happens with Vetements. Kind of, it went from a brand I really liked to a brand that I couldn't care less for. I know some for other people, because we all have different opinions. Like, a quick disclaimer for this video is my opinion isn't right. Like, it's just my personal opinion from what I see. You might have different opinions, so whatever you think that's different, comment down below. Comment down below what your favorite collections were. Comment down below if you thought I missed something out. But yeah, man, it's just sad to see what happens to Vetements. I wouldn't say it's dead, because there's potential it could come back, but I definitely think Demna being at Balenciaga, it's not going to change, because he uses all his good ideas at Balenciaga, because that's where the buzz is, and I guess that's why he's making all his money. So he, at this point, doesn't really care about Vetements anymore. And from the past collections, it definitely doesn't look like he cares about Vetements, because the collections have been awful. So yeah, that's just my video on Vetements. You know, follow me on Instagram at Fashion Roadman. Like this video, subscribe to my channel if you're new. This is the Fashion Archive, and I talk about fashion, as you can probably tell from this video. If you like to talk about fashion, I have a Discord chat, and you know, all the details to other stuff as well is all in my description below. So definitely check that out. And if you're already subscribed, I can't stress to you how much and how important it is if you turn on your post notifications, because a lot of people don't get notified when I post. And yeah, on that note, I'm out. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for more.